So I'm record and okay, letting go of fear. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Stevens, and I'm with Stevens Group Training. And I just love supporting people who are motivated to improve their lives by realizing and releasing themselves from fear. I'm excited to help you remove fear-related compromises from your life so that you can experience and achieve all of your goals and aspirations. If you have any questions during our time together, please feel free to post them and I'll do my best to respond to them as quickly as I can. Over 40 million people in the United States alone suffer from anxiety-related disorders, according to the ADAA. That's the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. This means that 18% of the adult population will experience overwhelming fear and dread associated with anxiety at some point in their life. Fear as a concept might seem like a similar sensation, but it's generally considered that anxiety is used to define an ongoing sense of dis-ease or worry about areas of life that may not present themselves as immediately threatening. Fear is what you feel in a scary situation, a sudden, jolting, and debilitating reflex response. Anxiety, on the other hand, is less noticeable. It's recurring and ultimately can prove to be quite a bit more problematic in the way it interferes with everyday life. The impact that both fear and anxiety can have on all areas of life, however, is huge. And it's not until we do a little reflection and introspection that we realize that anxiety is a compilation of fears that we are unable to acknowledge and effectively express when they present themselves. For more on anxiety versus fear, check out this article from Psychology Today. So what happens to your body when you're afraid? To begin with, let's talk a little about the physical aspect of the emotion of fear that we are all accustomed to experiencing at some point in life. The commonly observed sensation of fear occurs in response to an external stimulus and causes the amygdala in the brain to release a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is also known as the fight or flight hormone and is what causes our bodies to respond unconsciously and elicit anticipation of danger or attack from an external source. From the amygdala, cortisol then travels to every muscle in the body and causes them to activate and tense up in a fear response as the unconscious physical body prepares to protect itself from attack. Physically, cortisol increases the release of glucose to the bloodstream, primarily as a way to increase energy levels in immediate response to a dangerous stimulant. The trouble with this in today's age is that not every stimulus presents a real danger, meaning that the glucose which gets sent into the bloodstream remains unused and over time can build up. This is why stress, anxiety, and unprocessed fears can actually be at the root of many physiological issues, such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and more. Another function of cortisol is to assist the body to regain homeostasis after a period of stress, fear, or imbalanced release of hormones. To read more about the biology of fear, you can see it at this website. The trouble with this fight or flight reflex action in today's society is that the fears we have evolved to protect ourselves from have also evolved. Where once our ancestors were triggered to run in flight from immediate life-threatening predators, today's reality is not quite as dangerous. Cortisol is released in everyday situations which are not life-threatening. Dreading work meetings, anticipating spending time with family, or worst of all, taking public transport. Our bodies still respond to these situations in the same ways, using excess amounts of energy as we enter into this protective mode. The human body hasn't learned yet how to differentiate between the dangers of, say, getting hit by a car or failing an exam. Both things elicit the same response in the brain. And as such, our bodies are overstimulated and flooded with unnecessary hormones. The result? Unnecessary and unhelpful levels of stress. So what's the lesson here? To first forgive your body, yes, forgive your body, for its evolutionary assumptions. It's not your fault that these responses have become routine. The reality behind our fear responses is that we must train our minds to react differently. To notice when you feel anxious and take an honest look at the situation, and then decide if your body's reaction to it is justified or not. This is the beginning of letting go of your fears. To read more about the stress response in the brain, here's a great article from Harvard Health. If we follow the guidelines set out in the last post and acknowledge the truth of our fears, noticing them for what they really are, we can begin to differentiate between rational fears versus those which are not. Usually there will be some form of sign letting you know if your reactions are exaggerated or not. And so it's essential to remain aware of your surroundings for just this reason. Be conscious of your interactions with others during a period of so-called fear. Are you creating tension where tension is not called for? Have you created rifts or noticed a shift in the positive energy of the interactions you used to take for granted? Get curious about your fears. And if you feel comfortable to do so, ask those closest to you to help you identify common patterns. Often it's other people who notice our patterns first. And so if you're really struggling to do so, difficult as it may sound, it can help to talk. For more on why opening up about mental health issues is so vital to recovery, check out this website. The answer to this question is yes, yes, it is. The main problem is that this question often comes up during the power struggle between maintaining and releasing control of fear. Our own capacity to change is infinite, and it's vital that we access this potential if we are to truly start thriving. Notice if some statements, such as the following, have wormed their way into everyday dialogue. I'm not capable. I'd love to, but I couldn't. That's not for someone like me. Or I'm not able. If any of these sound familiar, you may need to change the inner dialogue, that self-talk that surrounds your fears. The most important thing to consider when you're seeking to let go of any fear is to fully acknowledge it for what it is and how it has formulated in your mind. Only by familiarizing yourself with the fear can you hope to overcome it. Our 5 steps to releasing fear. Step 1, acknowledge the fear. You can't fix it if you don't accept it and acknowledge it. Step 2, release the control surrounding it. That means you don't have to keep it under control. You can let it go. Step 3, decide which action can be taken to overcome it. And step 4 goes right along with that. Take this action to make lasting change. And finally, step 5, put all your effort, energy, and concern into creating and maintaining that change. Simply writing this down and taking an objective look at the role fear has been playing in your life is the most effective and lasting way to make changes in how you perceive and deal with fear. Here are some additional tips for accepting and releasing fears at this website by Mind, Body, and Green. It's not just a fitness trend, yoga and meditation. There is so much to be gained from practicing yoga and meditation regularly that the mental health benefits often get forgotten in favor of the more immediately visible and obvious physical benefits. Many of these practices are derived from ancient teachings spanning centuries of knowledge passed down from teacher to student, with the ultimate goal of realizing our true nature and calming the mind to prepare for a stable meditation. Does this sound like something which allows for the fear, anxiety, and fluctuating moods that accompany them? Many people report feeling lighter and more themselves after practicing yoga and meditation. The good thing about this is that it allows us to cultivate a more stable foundation for all difficult emotions, not just fear and anxiety. From this stable base, we are less susceptible to succumb to the onset of fear and anxiety. It doesn't mean they won't occur, just that our capacity to deal with them becomes stronger. If you're interested in learning more about this, the following is a link to a great article that explains how yoga and meditation can help us overcome and let go of fear for good. It's often said that depression occurs when we're living in the past, and fear or anxiety occurs when we try too hard to live in and predict the future. This means that living in the now becomes an almost impossible task. An impossible task which is necessary if we are to truly let go of fear and release ourselves from its grip for good. Through various practices like meditation, mindfulness, and other creative pursuits, you'll find a noticeable difference in the capacity you possess to stay present. Making this a priority as you move forward in your life has also proven to be extremely useful in fighting symptoms of other mental and physical illnesses too. This article I've linked below describes one man's experience overcoming his addiction by letting go of existing fears and using meditation to stay present. It's a great read. Gratitude is something that I talk about in every talk I do, every workshop I do. And it's a practice that, like meditation and yoga, can have a powerful and immediate effect on us. The areas of the brain which activate during a practice of gratitude are the same places that are associated with the release of dopamine, the pleasure and happiness center of the brain. By drawing awareness back into the present moment and away from perceived fears, stories, and mental meanderings, gratitude has the capacity to bring an anxious, fearful person from a bout of uncontrolled anxiety back into the present moment and towards contentment. It really can be that powerful. This fantastic capacity to have both an emotional and physiological response in the body is part of the reason why gratitude is so powerful. It is an all-around healing tool for releasing fear, anxiety, and negativity. Don't believe us? Take a read of the following link from Psychology Today. There is a state of consciousness known as the flow state. That's F-L-O-W, flow, like a flow of water. There is a state of consciousness known as flow state, which is characterized by periods of intense focus and undistracted concentration on one specific task. Studies have shown that those who spend more time in flow experience lower levels of anxiety and fear. And so it can be a very effective way to manage this. Many artists describe their most profound artistic insights as stemming from a state of flow. And it's also known to be a period of low emotional fluctuations, where the areas of the brain associated with learning, happiness, and positivity are very active. So, what's the conclusion? In order to experience what it's like to let go of fear and reduce anxiety, we need to spend more time in flow. But what does that mean? Well, flow looks different for everyone. For some, it can be more obvious creative pursuits like writing, journaling, singing, drawing, painting, etc. But these are definitely not the only ways. Absorbing activities such as gardening, walking, running, reading, cooking, cleaning, and even just being wholly absorbed in your work for a period of time are all ways to spend time in flow. The trick is to find what this is for you. Sorry about that, but my PowerPoint got slowed down posting that website. Sometimes the most effective way to let go of fear is to simply let go a little bit and learn how to trust. It has been proven that fear and anxiety regularly stem from a deeply ingrained need to control our environment and a fear of trusting it. The reason for this is that anxiety thrives on the possibilities of failure and disaster that it finds in every given situation. Even if there are no apparent threats, anxiety will find the worst case scenarios in everything and zoom in on them. Sound familiar? While being aware of this is helpful, it's not always enough to combat the intensity of your fears. Building self-trust is essential for this. We're now going to take you through some helpful ways to encourage your sense of self-trust. In what areas of your life do you feel that you lack trust? Self-trust is only established through a real and honest connection to your emotions. Honoring emotions when they arise for precisely what, how, and as they are can be a difficult task. Release the need for others' opinions and approval. Many of us seek approval from peers, family, and partners simply for the rush of dopamine it provides. Identifying this kind of pattern can be hard to admit and face, but will ultimately strengthen your resolve in the long term. As we honor our feelings, be it crying when we're sad, expressing gratitude when we're grateful, or allowing an emotion of admiration to surface about someone we love, we create a safe space for that emotion to exist. Reducing the resistance surrounding it creates a nurturing space for that emotion. Just as we'd cultivate a safe space to nurture a child, our feelings must be acknowledged, supported, and given the opportunity to grow. By doing this, we can begin to allow the problematic emotions and begin the journey towards moving past them. In terms of fear, often just acknowledging the presence of the fear is enough to lessen its intensity. Read the following article. It outlines the difference between feeding and honoring our feelings. How many of you are guilty of filling a fearful silence with excited, irrational speech or actions which don't actually lend themselves to your goals? They neither fulfill your desires nor do they solve or support your fears. Sometimes sitting in silence with anxiety and fear can prove one of the most daunting tasks in the world. And this is precisely why it's so important. By allowing fear the time to settle, it becomes clear in our minds, and we can more easily put things in place to combat it. This isn't an invitation to block it out and ignore it. The opposite is in fact true. Stillness forces us to deal with fears and start from a place of stable awareness to change them. Meditation is an excellent tool for this, as is mindfulness, breath awareness, or even just taking time to be by yourself in nature. The following link is a guided meditation which is effective at soothing anxiety and helping to reduce fear. Let me know what you think. I'd recommend using headphones. The practice of mindfulness involves remaining present and mindful in the moment, no matter what the situation around us. This is easier said than done, especially if we are used to letting the monkey mind take over and lead the way instead of sitting with emotions like fear and anxiety. You will find, however, that by merely returning yourself to the moment and ensuring you remain present instead of drifting into imaginary thoughts and what ifs, you will begin to see your fears in a different light. Try the following steps. Notice the way your body might react physically to external triggers. Figuring out our triggers in this way is crucial to gaining the freedom from fear and anxiety we all seek. Notice the small things around you, beauty in nature, sounds in the distance, or basic bodily sensations that we usually take for granted. This is mindfulness. This is becoming present. By doing these things, we become able to turn our fears into beneficial surges of energy, which can then be used to our advantage. Read more about mindfulness for fear here. We've already discussed the benefits of meditation for releasing fear and anxiety. However, there are specific methods that specifically benefit anxiety and fear more effectively than others. Loving kindness meditation is exactly what you'd expect it to be. A way for us to direct attention and awareness back towards a part of us which is comprised predominantly of love, kindness, and acceptance instead of fear. Making this shift away from fear and towards love is hugely beneficial. Focusing awareness on the heart during meditation and repeating heart-centered mantras draws our attention away from the threatening side of experiences and towards the positive, life-enriching aspects. Read more about this kind of meditation here. It's funny how we tend to indulge in the things that least serve us. When it comes to fears, letting imagination run away with us, and staying in a negative cycle of fear-indulging habits is the main issue we find ourselves stuck in quite often. When you observe an emotion, fear, or sensation, it's up to you how you deal with it. Indulging in the sensation will strengthen it. Allowing it more time and energy when you know it's damaging is probably the worst thing you can do, right? The hardest part of all this is that the only way through is to be strong and not let the thought take charge. Take note when you start feeling fear or anxiety. Ignore it, choose another outlet for it to be expressed, and let go of the fear. Don't take my word for it, however. Check out the video from an Oprah weekend. Many of us allow fear to dictate important decisions. We long for the clarity to know exactly what the outcome of everything will be, resisting to take action until the right time presents itself. Unfortunately, this very often leads to the indulgence of fears and a lack of action in any area of life. The reality is that the right time may never actually occur, and waiting for it might end up in us postponing our lives and prolonging states of suffering that really need not be endured. In short, waiting for the right time means that fear wins. Do you want this to happen? If you're serious about combating fear and releasing yourself from anxiety, it's time to take action to act against the limiting beliefs. What will you do to take action? Read more on why there is no right time at this link. Many modern holistic medicinal approaches, like functional medicine, will advocate the importance of assessing the root causes of illness. This is because there is simply no point in treating the symptoms of any illness, be they mental or physical, with drugs or other prescribed methods without first addressing the cause. By treating the symptoms, you reduce only symptoms. In discovering the root causes, you can easily get to the bottom of these root causes and remove them for good. Or at the very least, help yourself or a loved one to become aware of what's truly underlying their fears and anxieties. See the difference? The same goes for fear. You can't possibly hope to remove your fears for good without doing a little bit of inner work and seeking to acknowledge what may be the reason or origin of beliefs behind it all. Functional medicine has so many benefits by itself, not just for healing anxiety and fear. It's definitely worth learning more about it. So I thought I'd link you to an article which describes very well the basic principles of functional health. Expressing emotions does not come easy to everyone. Emotional intelligence and a language of emotions refer to becoming skillful and aware in the way that we experience and express emotions on a regular basis. How often have you heard phrases like, "I'm just stressed out," or "I'm just really tired," used to cover up sensations of fear, anxiety, and other related issues? It's one thing to use these words as an excuse not to talk about the roots of the issue. It's another thing entirely to believe them as fact. Becoming emotionally literate is vital if we are to begin to take control of our emotional state and let go of emotions that no longer serve us, such as fear. Quite often, it's not a case of emotional illiteracy. It's merely that many of us require a safe space in which to express these feelings. Read more about how your emotional vocabulary can affect your entire life. Letting go truly is the only way to access unlimited contentment and satisfaction in life. Whether it's fear, anger, love, hate, any example of intense emotion can be hugely impacted by cultivating the ability to let go. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring your difficult emotions. Letting go involves an intricate process of looking, acknowledging, accepting, and moving through your difficulty. To truly process it and assimilate any important life lessons you will undoubtedly learn from it. When it comes to fear, the processes might differ slightly from those involved in letting go of, say, unrequited love or even grief. And each fear within this sphere will vary too. Sometimes it seems like the most reckless thing to do. But ultimately, letting go helps us to cultivate a sense of inner strength in ourselves and trust in the world, which then allows for greatness to manifest outwards. Are you ready to let go? Here's a great article on the power of letting go. For this webinar, I placed all of the resources on the corresponding slides as we went along, rather than one long list at the end of it. I hope you find that helpful this time around. Well, that's it for us today. But believe me when I say this is just the beginning of the journey. Fear is a persistent sensation that takes a lot of self-awareness, discipline, and energy management to truly overcome. I know that everyone is capable of doing this, and using some of the things we've discussed today will help. Trust yourself. Trust that fear will come and go and always be lurking on the horizon as a potential outcome. But know that you don't have to buy into it. You don't have to let it win. If I can help you in any way whatsoever with dealing with letting go of your fear, I would be more than happy to do so. You can send me an email at dave@stevensgrouptraining. That is the best way to get in touch with me. I'm grateful that you guys checked in today, and I hope that through some of the things that I shared with you today, you will be able to let go of the fears that have held on to you for so long.